something.
All right, let me see if I
Kindly
can.
confirm once. Nothing?
Not yet. Not yet. Yes. Can you try now?
Yeah, let me. Okay.
Yes. Perfect.
Fantastic. Great. So let me just first do a quick introduction. My name is Mumbe Mutuku. I am the lead UX designer for public sector digital transformation. It's a new department that came up around last year, basically to just support the public sector in terms of all things that they need for their digital transformation. So that's where I currently lead. I am currently now in my 5 years of UIUX and user research. I remember the last time that I was on this session, I honestly don't think I had so much of experience in terms of user research, but I think right now I'm growing, Anthony, just to report. Also, part of what we've been doing is, the likes of Hustler Fund that has gotten immense traction. We have also been able to do a few more projects around digitization, and one of these is my county, and that's what I'm going to be taking you through today. So basically, we're just going to have a walkthrough around how we are empowering devolution and specifically leveraging UX for government digital transformation. So just to give you a little bit of context, in 2022, if we can remember, the government made an announcement that it's going to have a mission to digitize nearly all its services. Nearly keyword, because there's some that might end up not necessarily, being fully automated. And one of the key areas is the counties have already begun digitizing these devolved services. Some of them include, business registration, licenses, business, a lot of business areas, parking. They just have really been facing a really hard time and significant challenges when it comes to delivering these essential services to its citizens. And the existing methods that we came to find out are mostly either really outdated, inefficient, or are often left, and in most cases, usually leave the citizens and the county administration really, really frustrated. One of these cases that we remember is, for example, for Nairobi County, we had a sit down with some of the county administrators, and they said it's really hard to have a total visual representation of who has paid parking where exactly in Nairobi. So those are some of the places, or rather problems that we came to realize are already in existence. For us to design and implement, a user-centric county application that optimizes the citizen experience and empowers the county administration, we had to leverage user-centered design principles. And some of at least the 4 main areas that were guiding us to, ensure that this is the path and you do not, walk away from it, was improving citizen accessibility, fostering citizen engagement, or rather, how do we foster citizen engagement within the application? How do we enhance the transparency and accountability within, the applications that you're going to be giving, or even the entire ecosystem for my county? And also, how are we going to ensure that there's inclusivity? One of the areas that you're going to see is there was a very big worry because, Safaricom is known for, to be one of the tech lead in Kenya. So there was the worry of, are you going to cater for the likes of USSD? Because that's on its own is a key area for, a specific type of persona. So those are the areas that we also needed to, work with. So for us to accomplish some of these objectives, we needed to have, we divided our project into design phases, specifically when it comes to UX. We divided it into specific phases. One being understanding the context. Two, we needed to specify the requirements with the guidance of, the county government. And three, we needed to do a design. And four, the designs that we come up with, how are we going to evaluate them and ensure that they guide us in doing an iterative process. Every single time that you have probably a few changes that you want to do within the application or even the ecosystem. Is it based on what you have researched and have you done, a testing on that particular area? First, let me walk you through on how we went about to understand the context. One, of course, we do not understand how government works. As a Safaricom, that was one of the areas that we came to realize it needed to be, there was a gap that needed to be filled. One, what are the needs or the pain points, aspirations of our target users who are the citizens? What exactly do they really need to do? Because it's one thing to say you want to digitize the entire, county services or the entire government processes, but what exactly are the main areas that we want to know the users are interested in? Two, what are the current administrative processes and service delivery methods that are within the county administration? Why we are involving the administrative processes of the county is we cannot also create, for example, a platform where the county administrators need to access, yet we haven't talked to them and understand how have they, there are policies that guide the current administrative processes. So what are some of those policies that one might hinder our processes, or even it can make our design process much, much easier? Three, what are the existing technology infrastructure, data systems, digital capabilities that will impact the development and implementation of the county application? Why we were focusing on technology infrastructure is we do not want to design for processes that might end up being redundant. We also did not want to end up doing processes that perhaps, this is just an hypothesis, perhaps it's already working seamlessly on the ground compared to us giving it a technological solution. So these are the top three areas that were guiding us to just come and understand the context behind, solution that the government has requested to have. So of course, it all starts with discovery. It has to be a very continuous, process. So we are involved. We are, every single time we get involved in very intensive discovery sessions with county citizens and administration. It's on a very high level. This is how it looks. You start off with doing desktop research. We also get involved in in-depth interviews, focus groups. We also do observations. This is where you have to go and look at what, for example, in the case of the county administrators, how do they run their day-to-day, tasks, benchmarking and on existing digital solutions, collaborating with counties to document and analyze current administrative workflows. On this side, you can see one of our own, Bethel Kiprop, facilitating an in-depth interview. So basically, this is how it looks, yeah? We have to go to the ground and actually talk to the citizens, talk to the county administration. So for those areas that I've talked about, for example, the desktop research, in-depth interviews, focus groups, and observations had at least our top three takeaways, which are citizens are really eager to really be part of the engagement with the county government. They really want to feel like they are still part of the process, because so many of them actually did highlight that in most cases you tend to, the leaders are really welcoming when they want your votes, but once they get the the position that they were vying for, in most cases, we tend to be left behind. So how can we ensure that you, as a leader, you still take, your citizens with you and be part of your government, be part of of this position that you've been granted. The other thing is we also realize the need for diversity in terms of age and digital literacy. How do you communicate that? As much as you're this age, you are able to still access the different devolved county services. How does the digital literacy also affect the way we design, the way we build the product? And we also realize that there's need for people to actually access county government services. On collaboration with counties or to document and analyze current administrative workflows, our key takeaways were inefficiencies and bottlenecks. There's a lot of redundancy processes, honestly. There's also very unnecessary delays. For example, let me just use my own use case. There's a time that I needed to get parking in Nairobi. I had to literally wait for the attendant to finish checking like three other vehicles for her to come and attend to me. So here the question is, how easy is it for me to find parking in Nairobi? Probably by the time I leave my house, I already know that there are several parking slots within town, and can I, pay even before I get there? Or even if I'll get there, can I immediately pay, and it reflects to the county offices, and at the same time, it reflects to the enforcer's application? Also, there's a lot of manual data entry. This, of course, we know in most cases, there's a probability of having a lot of errors. And when it comes to reporting, sometimes they will tend to not have things that are aligning. The other key takeaway was the opportunities for digital integration. We might not, we had an hypothesis that probably most of these counties did not have, for example, a revenue management system. We came to realize that these are things that are already there. And because we are not coming to compete with the market, how do we integrate with the processes that are already there? And how does that also reflect in our designs? The other one was understanding of administrative constraints and needs. This is where now the policies come in. The policies that have been put in place also on the national government, level, whereby you cannot tweak some things. It all has to go, according to the book. So one of those things was understanding how these policies work and how we can, work along with the policies. The next design phase was specifying the requirements. We worked closely with the county government and the citizens to actually understand what exactly do the users of the entire ecosystem need. And for us to build an ecosystem that will drive seamless payments and citizen engagement and empowerment, these were the key areas. The top three for county use case were, can they be assured that there is proper revenue assurance collection? Can they also be able to see the analytics? For example, can they be able to see money that has been collected from parking? Can they be able to see the money that has been collected through CES? So we had to make sure that we avail that kind of information on a dashboard. At the same time, I've talked about how enforcement works in Nairobi County. So can also the enforcer be able to access this information so that they do not necessarily have to keep on making calls to the main office just to confirm that Mumbe has made a payment for her parking. Then for the citizen, we had the county services. This was very key. Some of the county services, again, is the likes of parking, CES, market entrance, and so on. And then also, can they be seamlessly able to pay for these payments? And then now that is what is going to translate to the analytics dashboard. And again, citizen engagement. How do I, Mumbe, a citizen of Machakos County, be able to communicate to the governor about, an issue that I'm currently facing? Of course, the information doesn't directly go to the governor, but now it's the mandate of the county to actually set up processes within the county to be able to respond to these messages that are coming to the county. So where will the citizens access this the county items from? So the requests were to have USSD. Of course, this is to allow the people who do not have a lot of, a huge understanding of the digital, applications, and also the capabilities for Android and iOS applications and the web application. Next on our design phase was now doing the actual design work. Yeah. So for us, we had an overly ambitious deadline, honestly, and we had to accelerate the transition from design to active development. The developers were already there, and they needed now things that they can actually implement. So we were heavily guided by these three metrics. One, we needed to have a lean UX and user-centered design. One thing that we've very well done within Safaricom is we have a great team of designers that you can literally just call them and tell them, yo, I need you guys to come on board. We need to do a one-day design sprint, and that heavily assists on addressing specific design challenges really quickly. And then at the same time, based on the data that we've collected from our research sessions, it's going to guide now our design choices. We were also doing a lot of usability tests while we are also doing, the actual design work, where we used to conduct brief and focused usability tests with a small number of representative users. And the counties really, really were great in just, helping us in getting our participants, because that's usually one of the biggest headaches as researchers that we usually face over time, because sometimes you find that you have replenished all your participants, you need others, or you actually don't even have participants. So working closely with the county government, it really assisted us in getting people that we can test, meaning we saved up on time, big time. And then the third one is agile development. In Safaricom, we do the agile methodology, and this ensures that the project progress is we usually take in small chunks and manageable iterations. This makes sure that we are getting, real-time feedback and at the same time iterating on the same. I'm sorry if I'm in the dark. We've just lost power, but I'll still continue. Next is now, what are the highlights that we picked from the designs that we did and the designs that we actually went to test on? One, we have one application that you can use for multiple counties. So we are no longer working with one county has, Nairobi County has its own application. Makueni County has its own application. The interface allows you to switch from one county to another. As you can see from this image, I've just illustrated the counties that you can switch in through. That is Makueni County, you can switch into Nairobi County. It still maintains the same user interface, and it still maintains the same user experience, regardless of what the backend actually looks like. The other thing is there's also the seamless payment of county services. So depending on the county services that each county actually consumes, we actually end up tailor-making the user interface for that particular county based on what they actually are consuming. Then there's also now the citizen engagement, which is Semana Governor. This has received tremendous appreciation from the citizens, because now people can actually talk about, the things that perhaps they thought they were not going to talk about. And now the county can now see things that, the citizens are actually, they really want to communicate on. It can be a complaint, it can be a congratulations that you're doing a good job, it can be anything. But at the same time, we have implemented and we've done AI implementation whereby the system cannot allow any kind of abusive language that can go through. So that, that is the kind of work that we've actually put in place. And it's heavily based on the fact that the county administration did, voice this as a concern. And now that you can see that we've also taken that insight for it to affect how we're actually going to be implementing the work. The outcomes for this amazing work has, for example, in April, we successfully launched our first county, Makueni. It was an amazing session. And then till date, we've been able to onboard 11 more counties, the likes of Samburu, Nairobi, Uasin Gishu, Kitui, and so on. And then we've been able to also account for 8 payment services that are now live within the application. And now we have these services, the same experience that you're going to have within the application is the same experience you're going to have on UCSD. The flow you're going to experience for Nairobi County for while paying for your parking is the same that has been done on UCSD, just to ensure that users don't have to the aspect of, do I have to think about what I'm doing? So if you've already gotten used to the UCSD, it's easy for you to transition into the application and vice versa. The last design phase is evaluation. So the key to us is continually gathering data through methods like usability testing, user surveys, usage analytics, and performance monitoring. The main areas around the key metrics that we actually track are usability and accessibility, whereby we assess user friendliness, accessibility for people with disabilities, and performance. We also have a tracking metric we track the engagement and satisfaction metric. This is whereby we measure the user satisfaction, engagement through user usage metrics and feature adoption. By prioritizing these enhancements, we prioritize the enhancements based on this data. So once we've done, for example, user satisfaction testing, we ensure that those are the ones that gain the highest score in terms of their areas that probably we need to work on. That's what feeds our backlog, and then now we pick it up as a task. Then there's a content relevance. We continuously review and optimize the application's information structure and navigation, of course, guided by the citizens and heavily by the county administration. So that's it from me. I think now I can open the floor to any questions. And if you want to say hi, you have my LinkedIn profile name and social media handles.
Awesome. Thank you, Mumbe. That's an amazing project and work that you guys are doing. Hand of applause wherever you are. And yeah, I hope you can see those clapping avatars. Now, I'm opening it up for questions, a couple of questions, but the first, remember, if you want to ask a question, raise your hand, and one of the moderators is going to unmute you, allowing you to ask. But I'll ask the first one. Personally, having handled this project, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced personally in doing this project? I know it was you couldn't have done it alone, but from your own vantage point, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced, and how did you deal with them?
Okay, of course, for us, the biggest challenge was time. And as I've just illustrated, is we had to, one, figure out what the priorities were. And of course, the main priority here was just to figure out how we're going to give. We even asked the counties to give us the top 3 revenue items and the biggest feature that they think they would love to push the most. This ensured that within the time constraint, we give them the minimal viable product. That's how we handled the time constraint. The second one was our assumptions of we had a proper big assumption that people actually understood the copy that we were using. For example, the initial, or rather, what the current live application has the likes of words like reporting. The day that we went to do a usability test, I remember it was in Makueni County, we had a lot of feedback that people actually did not understand what that meant. So we had to come back and now start, we had to iterate and look at it from a perspective of, if people were given options on which terminologies to actually use or copy, what would they be? So that was also one of our biggest challenges, the fact that we probably had no proper, or rather previous experience creating a product with such a vast range of personas, because we have, the elderly being part of that. I mean, everyone in Kenya actually consumes the county services. So there's also that. And I think the other last challenge was just bridging the gap between the county and the user, because of course the county will have their own business objectives, county objectives. But one thing I usually say is, as a designer, you are the ambassador of the user. So if you are the ambassador of the user, it means, for example, if I built something and then someone in Makueni knew I was building it and they actually realized that I did not take keen interest in what they said, it means I've failed that person. So that was also one of the other biggest challenges that we faced.
Nice. I see Fred would like to ask a question. I think you're probably not.
Sorry, I was just trying to unmute.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
One, I have a few questions for Mumbe, and thank you for the presentation. I was keen to follow up exactly how you went about the designing and coming up to. I believe it's now live. Okay. One thing that I'd like to ask, rather two. How flexible is this app, considering you talked about it working within different counties and their needs? In essence, what I'm trying to drive at is, how flexible is it for those who have apps on their phone or the app on the phone, for it to detect where the user is instead of the user automatically switching to the different counties, okay? And two, how do you measure your quality of work? In essence, like, for example, you've gone to Nairobi County and you've done your user case and you've done your background, taking feedback from the users on the ground. How do you ensure that you're actually meeting up to your quality standards, if you have quality standards, and ensuring that actually you're meeting your threshold? Do you have any zero risk measures in place?
Thanks,
That's
Fred.
it.
Okay, thank you.
Probably just adding on top of like what Fred has asked. Generally, how do you balance the balancing? There are a lot of stakeholders you're balancing here, because citizens want one thing, governments want one thing, and there are different governments in different places. So how do you balance all of those expectations and still keep at least most people happy, or at least not annoyed at you?
Yes. Okay, thank you. First question, flexibility in terms of location, tagging. So this one was a proper headache for us, I can't lie. So one of the main use cases for us was, can I be able to pay for my items? For example, I have businesses in Kitui. I have a land that I've bought in Kitui, but I live in Nairobi, for example. Yeah. So we have implemented it with the thought of that user who does not necessarily need to be tagged where they are actually geologically, because we realize that in most cases it might be because there are situations of, what if I want to pay for someone's parking? My bro is in Nairobi, he's stranded, he needs to pay for parking. Those are the situations that we had to think of. The system, yes, does geo-tagging because we also track where people are using the application, but that doesn't necessarily equate to where the services that you are trying to consume. So as much as we are tagging where you are, we are not assuming that's where you are is where you want to consume. Those are the county services that you're trying to consume. I mean, like we've had, I think I was going through the statistics. We had someone, I don't know what they were doing, from Vietnam looking at the county application. So I was like, okay, this is quite interesting. So if we actually force the application to pick the geolocation, it means probably there is a Kenyan somewhere in Vietnam who's trying to consume the county services. We need to give them the flexibility to actually choose which county services they want to consume. The question on measuring quality of our work. Probably could you come up again? I think I did not get the
Probably
proper
rephrasing
question.
it. Maybe rephrasing
Yes.
it, like how do you measure success? What does success look like? And how do you know, what are the metrics you're tracking to see that you're actually tracking towards the success, that you are actually successful as opposed to it flaming out? Because I'm sure at some point you'd have to make a decision, or at least look at things that are not going as well as planned. So here are the metrics that I'm using to do that. How do you measure success, and how do you course correct?
From a project perspective, I mean, if you meet your KPIs, I also have, the design project management hat. If you meet your KPIs and your backlog is clear, there's that. From a UI UX perspective are we having users dropping off? What is the rate of users dropping off? What is the rate of people actually making payments on the application? What are the rates of the errors that are there? That goes to tracking features and user flows. So for us, success looks like if someone is actually paying for parking, have they gone through the entire process without, and this is where we are assuming everything is okay. Your data is okay. You have no latencies and so on. So that is also one of the biggest areas. And I mean, at the same time, if we strike a balance between all stakeholders, it's hard. It's honestly hard. I don't think there's someone who's ever had like 100%. Okay, the lights. Sorry, 100%. Figuring it out, but for where I stand, I am heavy on user-centeredness. Safaricom is heavy on customer obsession. So how do you also ensure, we also make sure that as much as, the county government has come with its own needs, we have to strike a balance. Let me just give a very good example. Of course, the reporting feature did not make sense to most users. So we had to come and, tell the counties, as much as this is, it's one of the best action items to you, it makes sense to the county. It means perhaps there's a place we can either, the county can conform a little bit, or we have to stick to what the citizens are actually talking about. So that's also another way of, for us, trying to figure out how you're going to balance the different stakeholders that we have. And of course, there's also the Safaricom as a stakeholder. Like, you might end up being asked, so how are you making money out of it, and so on. But now that goes back to a different department that handles those specific areas.
Yeah. Based on like the way you described the project, how how do you differentiate the work you do personally with like a project manager or a product manager, probably assigned to the same? How do you coordinate? I'm making the assumption that there was maybe a product manager, and how do you then coordinate and manage the relationship between the two of you?
First, we are such a close knit group. We're like just a few people, and honestly, we've come to appreciate what every single person is bringing to the table. And also, we've come in a way since we started, we've realized is a procedural way of handing over. For example, for me, I'm heavy on discovery. Whereby I have to go sit down with the stakeholders, they let us know what they need and so on and so forth. At the same time, we're going to have the product manager who's also going to listen in, but then they will be handling the technical aspect of it. I'll be handling UX aspect of it, and also there's a different aspect is customer journey, user flows, and so on. So for us, it's somewhat seamless, because everyone has understood the scope of work. It begins, where it ends, and there's a seamless, handoff between the different units.
Okay. Thank you, Mumbe, for sharing with us the projects and the work that you guys are doing. Amazing, and we really appreciate it. And let's give Mumbe an applause. There's a reaction button somewhere. Let's show her some love. All right, thank you so much, and we hope to see you again on the floor, giving us updates on how things are going. All right. Next, we're going to switch over to Maina Kimani, who is going to be speaking about how do you leverage AI for your UX, and so as we know that this is one of those things that is with us, and you cannot close your eyes and wish it will go away. And so how do you make use of AI to up your game in UX? So I welcome Maina to step up on stage so we can have that discussion, and let's welcome him. As I said, public speaking is not easy, so let's encourage anyone who's given themselves to come. So hand of applause, if you will. Welcome, Karibu Maina. Are you able to unmute yourself and share your video?
Okay. Hey, Anthony.
Hi. Welcome.
Hi. Believe the last time we saw each other, I was an intern somewhere.
Yes. Trace. I know this face, and I know we've interacted. I'm trying to remember where exactly that was. Yeah. I think we'll have more discussions after. Welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. So hi guys. So I guess I'm just going to share my video, rather my screen, in a bit. I believe my screen is visible, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, perfect. So I guess according to the topic, we are going to discuss about UX design in the age of AI. As you've all seen, it's kind of tricky to throw AI back into the bin. It's here to stay, and it's upon us as designers, everyone, wherever we work, just to bend by the tune of it. To start with, let me start with an introduction. So, who is Maina Kimani? I just love art. really passionate about building stuff. And I guess that's where the gist all comes in, from being a software engineer and also a designer at the same time. So back then, started dabbling design 2015, headed over to combining design and my computer science degree, or rather my knowledge skill set. So that's when I came to know about UX design. Continued with it, started freelancing, then graduated, eventually been out in the industry for quite a while in various sectors, and I appreciate it because it has given me like quite diverse perspective when it comes to tech and also design as well. And also, like, I really appreciate that by the fact that I've come to understand that design is not just about the aesthetics on the screens. A lot goes on behind the screens, like from the design thinking, the approach, and all that. So early this year, I started working at Savannah Informatics, which is a health tech company, and that's currently where I operate from. Okay. So my main objective for this session is just three of them. So what's AI? That's kind of the introduction. And then we move on to the AI impact on design and its industry. And then the other bit is staying relevant. How you as a designer, how can you stay relevant in a nature whereby we're experiencing drastic change, disruptive innovations, also with the rise of AI tools and so forth. Yeah. I believe we have more discussion on it later on. So I believe we've all seen such memes. So number one, when I realized ChatGPT can do my job for me, so you find it easy. And then there's the aha moment whereby you realize that ChatGPT can do your job for you. Then the other one is 5,000 years of accumulated human knowledge and know-how. Then the famous face. I guess another one which I saw recently was on how fast things are like across the world. So the number one was a cheetah, the other one, I guess, an airplane, and then the other one was experts in AI. So it's like each and everyone is becoming an expert in AI. So with that, I wouldn't like to call myself an expert in AI, but rather a collector of knowledge, yeah, or rather a curator of knowledge. So the tiny bits of knowledge which I collect here and there as I apply them to my work, yeah, and I'm happy to share them with you today. So without much ado, so what's AI? Given that it's quite a hot topic right now, and I believe most of us have heard about AI, we all have perceptions of what AI is, or rather definitions to what AI is, because apparently the scientists themselves haven't really like come up to a general conclusive definition of AI. But I believe two things to me which really like settle down the definition of AI is autonomy and adaptivity. So autonomy is basically like the ability to handle complex tasks within environments which are not really like simple or rather easy without necessarily using the user guidance. And then adaptivity is the ability just to learn from the environment, or rather get the context from the environment which you are using. Some of the example I believe we know about ChatGPT and also the self-driving cars, which this is not just the conclusive list. This is just an example of the generative models and also self-driving cars. I believe they also image processing AI, such as Midjourney and so forth. So how frequent do you use AI in your work as a designer? So this was a survey which was taken by the NNN group. So out of the 100 participants, or rather 100 designers, so 63% of them use AI within several times a week. And then we have 26% a few times per month. Then the 7%, 6 times per month, and then the rarely 4%. So I really don't know where you do fall across the spectrum, but I do trust you try to change as technology and advances. And I believe as designers, we are on the forefront of really ensuring users have a quite smooth experience and some good time. So let's move into like the gist of the presentation on AI impact on design industry. So not only in design, but really AI is changing the world. I believe we've all noticed that some of the mundane tasks, they are able to be handled by some of the AI tools such as ChatGPT and so forth. So really, AI makes us more productive for sure, no doubt. And also AI augments our natural capabilities such as decision making. This involves data analytics. So in case you have like a big chunk of data and you really want to analyze it, a good example would be like after doing some user research, you already have various sets of data and you really like want to group them or rather like really understand the several pain points. Already AI can do that for you. Yeah. So the next bit is AI creates new opportunities and roles, innovations and design challenges, which for this is true. As we continue on, we'll just be able to see some of these new roles, new innovations, and or rather like even design opportunities. And also with pattern recognition, a system can be able to learn like how you work your workflow and at the same time free up the consume time. That ties into the very, very first point. On to the design. So a good question I believe most of us as designers will ask, will AI replace designers? On my perspective, no. But a person using AI would, of which, let's take up, for example, back then in the days we used to have artists, and then came in the Photoshop era, and still doesn't mean like art is entirely embarked on technology, no, but still someone using the tech will now like replace that particular person. So we have AI tools that can prototype, generate ideas and images based on the prompts. This more so if you want to have AI as your design assistant or even like brainstorming partner. So there's this question about are they so efficient at it? Is AI so efficient at doing design? And maybe probably are there design principles that AI may fall short? And I believe getting to notice the gaps, that's how you can be able to position yourself, even make your career future-proof. Position yourself in such a manner that like where the AI falls short, you can be able like to be in the gap for it and achieve like an end-to-end kind of a journey. So some of the gaps include design is multidisciplinary. Just as I stated, being in the agri-tech, now in, being agri-tech, moving to cosmetics, and now in the healthcare industry. One thing I've noticed is that design, you cannot use the same principles. Okay, the underlying fundamentals still remain, but the disciplines kind of change. So you have to really tweak with the domain that you are currently specific in. And then you also need people to figure out what the problem to solve. Currently, it's so tough for AI to really like get to decide like and understand that this is a particular problem which probably a particular population is facing or having a challenge with. And then you also have the current AI is mainly on a prompt-based design. So it still needs guidance. It can't do an entire end-to-end design on its own. Then we have the design. Okay, this is similar to the first one. So while assessing AI's impact on the design industry, my thought would be like having these two separate entities, like you are designing for AI on one hand, and also on the other hand, you're designing with AI. Both of them, okay, will have various kind of results. So while designing for AI, you really focus on having a smooth user experience and applying the UX principles while building products that have AI tools or rather AI capabilities in them. While designing with AI, you are focusing on increasing your productivity, as in you are doing the design while in conjunction with the AI tools. So let's start off with designing for AI. So I came across this quite, it's an interesting article on the Jacob Nason group. I've attached the link down there if you want to have a look. So it was kind of talking about the various phases of computing and how design will be affected. So initially, we had the batch processing system, whereby you had to write each and every code of it, let the computer do and give you results. Finally, we are at an age whereby like it's more of a command-based interaction. So if you're designing something, you just pick a square, pick a circle, place it on the Figma, and probably that in terms of the commands which you're issuing. If it's code that you're writing, you just have to code it up, give a command, and that's it. But now we are venturing into the prompt-based or rather intent-based specification, whereby like if it's ChatGPT, you have to probably let it know, I need a design that is more focused on this and this. How can you template it for me? Or rather, if you want to write an email, just send a prompt to ChatGPT and say, I need an email for this task and this task. And then the system will interpret the prompt and finally give you the results that you want. There's an extensive article. The article, this is more of a screenshot, now like explaining the intent-based and outcome specification. And then also like focusing on the challenges that come along with designing for AI. So the issue of context and bias, that's one great issue that I guess we need to, like, as designers, we need to be at the forefront of it. Because for instance, we had a case with the Waston case. Waston, it's an AI built by IBM. There was this time whereby like they were building up the product whereby like it can diagnose and handle cancer treatment. Unfortunately, it was built using data sets in the US. And finally, once it was deployed to South Korea, it only had like 49% success. Okay, the issue wasn't that the AI was wrong, but rather like the design of it. It wasn't really like built with inclusivity in mind, and at the same time, like the context at which people are using it. For instance, currently within the healthcare domain, most of the time you find yourself trying to check up on the let me call them symptoms of the diseases. And unfortunately, most of us Africans with the dark skin, telling a person you will have a blue and pale kind of skin, that's really not effective. So I believe also as Africans, we should kind of be at the forefront of it, try to build models and rather even like generate data that can be trainable and ensure like we are all included in the results. So the next bit is on transparency, safety, and security. This is basically on trust. We believe trust, according from the user's perspective, is a very key element when it comes to like the product and usability of it. So I believe most of the times we don't really understand as users what really goes behind these tools. With regards to AI, how sure am I that this data is safe? How sure am I that my data is protected? How sure am I once probably I submit this image, it wouldn't like end up being used somewhere else? I guess it's quite a talk. It's a talk which should be ongoing. But I believe like if we find ways in enhancing trust and ensuring like the users really feel they can trust this application, would be a good go for it. The other bit would be intellectual property and ownership. This also ties in with really, let's say like we had the Mona Lisa. Currently, the AI models can be able to generate very good and cute Mona Lisas with example, Midjourney and so forth. But I believe also from a user experience, I would really love to see something that has been built by someone, whereby like I know this is blood and sweat from someone, or rather it's a masterpiece from a human being rather than just another generated image. And also believe another challenge probably that we might also include in this would be the issue of affordance and signifiers when it comes to UX design. I believe, for instance, if I might tell someone who is not that techy to use ChatGPT or rather Midjourney or any other UI tool at the very moment, it will be so difficult, so it will be so hard for them to use them. This is because you have to rely on the prompts. You really have to know the exact prompts for you to have like the desired results and so forth. I believe we can have a design around having signifiers, given that this is not quite a visible affordance, but we can have signifiers to giving the cue. Probably once you land here, you're supposed to do A, B, C, D, and so forth. So, and that introduces us to the opportunities that lies within designing for AI. So number one, it's personalization to a product and using AI. Personalization is such a key element when it comes to adaptability of a product. I believe once I feel like this product really resonates to how I work, to what I need, to probably the news feed that I do require, I'm more prone to get hooked rather than to a product whereby it's more on a gentle scale. So I believe one way to ensure that as a UX designer, you really remain relevant to this field is if you can build products that, or rather have AI models within your product that can really enhance personalization. And also the next bit, which is also tied to the first one, is user experience based on context and goals. Probably, let's say, for instance, currently on the sideline, I'm working on an agri-tech application that also implements some AI. If a user is really in the rural setup, I believe one way I was trying to figure out is how can the AI, or rather based on it's more like a storytelling, how can the farmer really feel like they are considered based on their level of understanding, level of education, and so forth. Because I believe the same information, how we'll package the information to a farmer who's not well like educated, it's not the same way we package it to another farmer who's really like educated and probably into the high-tech kind of farming. Yeah. And then the next bit is understanding user patterns and enhancing adaptivity. So the user patterns basically is just noticing probably this user tries to do this at this particular time. Remember, one of the definitions or one of the characteristics which we said would be a solid definition of AI is adaptability, whereby the AI model is able to learn. So if I can learn, probably at this particular juncture, I'm expected like to harvest this particular crop. You can start like now generating probably advice to that, and also like tending to also like you can also like learn the context, whether it's regarding the weather or markets and so forth. Yeah, and then the other bit is general. You can be able to generate multiple prototypes and test them. One of the toughest, I guess, on a personal level is having a blank canvas. So once you are being told to like you have to design ABCD, and that's and you learn on a blank canvas, you tend to take a lot of time, even like settling on the very first design. But with AI, you can be able to prototype and also like achieve multiple like ideas at the same time, validate them with your team, validate them with the engineers and so forth, and actual users, and be able like to ship products in good time. So some of the best practices to never forget as a designer while dealing with AI, I believe, is establishing trust. As we said, that's one of the major challenges, and also be inclusive of the entire population. And then a more important thing is be user-centric, not just tech-centric. Because I've seen this trend whereby most of the people are just, you want to solve a particular problem using AI, but really you're just focused on the tech that you're supposed to use, but not putting in mind that it's actually the end user who will end up using that product. So just be user-centric. Remember, it's the users who will come and use the product later on. and probably they might not be that tech savvy. So the next bit is help users grow. This is one a bit whereby I believe as designers we should ensure like also we as a community, we as a population continue learning. So the AI is learning from us. So why can't we also promote a mutual learning for wholesome experience whereby like the users can also learn from the same kind of a system. This is in terms of probably if you provide a way whereby users can be able to notice once I click on this, once probably I build on top, given that we are in the era of prompt-based, okay, we are kind of entering there. Prompt-based design or rather interfaces. How can a user know that probably if I enter this prompt, eventually these are the results. So it's a kind of a design spectrum that we are yet like to uncover, of which might be quite interesting seeing how things turn out. So designing with AI, we all know the design process starts with discovery, definition, ideation, and prototyping, and then you validate to the end users. And I believe at each and every point, probably in one way or another, we can find a tool that can be incorporated, an AI tool that can be incorporated within that phase. For example, here's an example of recently, or rather sometimes what I do. If you want to conduct interviews, record and transcribe, you can use Auto AI. Apparently, it's not so much effective when it comes to African accents, or rather if you tend to use Swahili and so forth. To some extent, you also like require also to use vernacular or probably like mother tongue. Which it would be quite interesting to see if we can also like come up with another model, probably platform whereby it can also detect the language and also like generate or rather transcribe using that language. And also we also have research AI. This can analyze data for you. If you have lots and lots of data, it can be able to bundle up. Actually, you can just Google them and probably play around with them later on. And then we also have the problem statement ideation. That's where the ChatGPT comes in as a design partner, actually. So, or rather design assistant. So, and also you can also generate feature list that is for your product. If you need wireframes, we have Visly. And also if you need to turn low-fi to high-fi prototypes, or rather even screenshots or sketches to really awesome designs, you can use UIUX. Other helpful tools could be Midjourney to generate images, Copy AI for copywriting, rather than just having Ipsum, you can just use Copy AI to generate some really engaging content. And also Visualize is mainly used for testing purposes. So here's an example of probably like using ChatGPT as your design assistant. So here's a prompt which I keyed in. So I needed it to be my UX research assistant. Here's a feedback. Went ahead and said, I'm developing a caregiving app. I need you to identify the target audience for this application. So my main idea here was to be really broad at what I really want and see whether like ChatGPT can really help you narrow down to your results. So actually it gave me like quite a nice response. So here's a response. So to identify the target audience for your caregiving app, it's essential to understand the specific needs of your preference of your potential users. And it went ahead to list probably the potential users and asked me to like really pick one. So I had to pick one that is a healthcare professional and told it to mention the pain points. She went ahead and listed some of the pain points. Now, here's a disclaimer. This shouldn't take you away from doing the field research and going to the actual users, but rather what's doing is just being like a partner to brainstorm and probably not just to start on a plain canvas. Already you have some content or rather a sense of direction on how to approach this. Another prompt would be like, it can also like generate personas for you. So I need 5 personas for the identify target audience, and also I had to mention like include the pain points. So it listed 5 of them. So I took a screenshot of 2. So is a nurse, and the other one is a doctor. And also you can see like we have listed number of pain points. So yeah, so how do we stay relevant as designers? I do believe one thing that AI cannot take away from us is the humanness, empathy, and intuition, which is a great value as a designer. And the next bit is system thinking, as in this is usually visualize everything as a bigger picture and how everything fits in together. Let's say if you are building a product, doesn't mean that you have to know how to code, but probably like you can envision how eventually this user will come and use the front end part of it, how the front end will be tied to the back end. It's just a holistic view of it. And then be creative and dare to dream. Most of these things 20 years ago would sound like a dream, but currently this is the world which you're living in. So, and it's only for creatives and dreamers actually. And then the fourth bit is learn how to learn. So don't be left behind. As a designer or anyone in tech is it's quite dynamic. So really you have to study, try things out. You can set time up aside really to play around with the AI tools and so forth. Yeah. On recommended reads, I have these 2 good resources that's delving into AI and UX. The first one is AI and UX. The next one is designing human-centric AI experiences. Actually, I've referenced both of them within the presentation. If you have some time, you can look them up on Amazon or probably buy a soft copy online. So yeah, thank you. That's me. Find me on my socials. Once I come up with the article, I'll let you know and share across the platforms. Yeah, thank you.
Round of applause. That was an awesome presentation. Thank you for presenting it. I have room for 1 or 2 questions. So anyone who has a question, please raise your hand and let's have a discussion. Yes, Esther, go ahead.
Okay. It's not a question, but also just a contribution in addition to everything that Maina has told us about AI. So another use case for AI I found very important is when I'm doing design system work, which is quite monotonous, creating the documentation for components, speccing out. So using ChatGPT to come up with a template so that I can just fill out the other places that I need to customize according to a design system. And then also when I'm coming up with new components, it helps me see blind spots, states that I did not think about, and justify why we need the states or why we don't. So that's also been important, like a bragging point as I present my components and I justify why this was necessary, this wasn't necessary. So that's what I use case for ChatGPT, especially if you work with design systems a lot.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. You have any comments on that, Maina?
That's true, because even thinking it from an engineering perspective, most of the time I've had really these quick bits whereby you're being asked, like, you have to work on this feature, how soon can it be? Then if you are like merging up as a designer at the same time as a front-end dev, you really have to be quick and prompt at it. So just like she said, the AI tools have really come in handy. You can create your own components. If you have like a design system in place, you can just jump it up. And actually ChatGPT has this awesome feature whereby like it can also like give you the reason as to why this has to be here and not there. Okay, apparently not each and every information that you get from GPT is accurate. So at the same time, you have to verify. And actually, so in short, you have to be quite knowledgeable at the same time. so that you can be able to really like question each and every result. Yeah.
That's true. Then I think one of the things to be very cautious about is that it's not here to replace you, it's here to be your assistant. And so the same way that if you had an assistant, you probably need to proofread, that you actually do need to proofread some of that work. There's a question here, are the UI users, is it a Figma plugin that you UIZAD, that's an interesting name. Is it a Figma plugin or is it independent?
Apparently it's independent, but I believe there are some plugins where Figma is trying like to incorporate also on AI, but on UIUX is quite independent. Apparently that's one of the challenges whereby like you have to move across, like hopping from one app to another, one tool to another. I believe in future we can also like think of a way like having a uniform or rather like a single point of whereby like you can do your end-to-end design from design thinking to like prototyping and actually like doing the actual design.
Yeah. A final maybe comment or question is, to what degree should we as UX designers start learning to code and play with the model, the API models, as opposed to just using like GPT?
Okay. Well, I believe okay, shouldn't be a must that you have to code for you to be a UX designer. But one thing that I found really helpful for me, also like in the task that I do, at a point whereby I really understand what's going on even with the code and blah blah blah, even when designing. So I believe you can start from a point whereby like no a particular endpoint requires this kind of data, or rather post a result of this kind of data. So you can try and play around it. But I believe that's more on the back end. As a UX, you can start from the front end going backwards if you're really interested with coding stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Maina asked something tangentially connected, is how is it being a developer designer at the same time, and can one handle both, or is specializing better?
It's that's a good question, by the way. Because most of the time I do experience some burnout, because like you're being put from both ends. As apparently there's a new feature, you're in this team, you're building a particular product. For instance, I believe there was a time whereby I was told I have to design a particular feature and at the same time implement it from back end to front end. It's quite a challenge at the same time. Okay, from my perspective is I love learning and I love like trying new things out. So for me, it's quite a plus. But eventually, overall, if you don't have the stomach for it, can be quite mouthful. So I bet my advice would just go at your own pace, or rather do what's comfortable for you. Because eventually, my plan is to branch out at the very end as a more of a product designer, product manager kind of a thing. So I need to be at a point where I really understand how each and everything connects to each other. Yeah.
And I think in closing, a comment I'll have, and maybe you can give your own comment there, is I've found as a UX designer, learning to code has become a lot easier with tools like ChatGPT. I personally have started learning to code and using ChatGPT as my pair programmer, where I actually like give it code. And I am a very beginner programmer, but I feel like I am intermediate in my execution level, because I'm able to solve bugs and like debug and deploy using GPT as a tool to help. So that's one of the things that I found to be useful.
Yeah, sure. Because apparently, if you use VS Code, it's a code editor. They have an extension which is known as Blackbox. Blackbox is similar to ChatGPT, and actually, if you are learning to design, it's a very good extension to have as a beginner, or even I do have it also if you also experience, because at some point you need someone to help you with debugging. You need also to seek clarification on one thing. You don't have to leave the code editor and go to a browser you can actually type in the question on the fly and have your answers, have your code generated, and so forth. Yeah, it's a cool plugin which is similar to ChatGPT, just that it's within the code editor.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for giving us this talk. We really appreciate the insights that you've given. And I want to thank everyone for joining and allowing us to be part of your lives. So something I'd like to share is the poll results. Maina, if you can stop sharing your screen. So the poll, we had a poll, and the poll results were okay. Not sure that I'm able to share them live here, but I'll just describe them. That the poll results were, the first question was, do you use AI at your workplace? And 100% of the people who responded said yes. The question was, the answers were yes, of course, yes, and nope, never. So it's good to see that we're using AI. Then the other one is, do you think AI will replace humans? And 95% said, haha, nope. And there's one who says, unfortunately, yes. And I think the truth might be somewhere in between. And I think there's different, there are different thoughts of how this is going to go. And obviously, no one has a crystal ball, but I'd encourage all of us to keep our ears on the ground, play with the tools, learn how to use them. Don't be caught flat-footed, because as Maina has said, it's most likely that you won't be replaced by AI, but you will be replaced by someone using AI. And so it would be advisable if you are the person who is replacing rather than being replaced. Finally, I'd like us to end with here are our contacts, and if you want to get in touch with us, want to keep in touch, you can reach out to us through that. And then just sharing a bit of things that are in the pipeline. One is that there are jobs, job opportunities, and they are primarily in our newsletter. I'll read a few of them. Canonical is hiring junior and senior designers. Sinfa is hiring a junior UX design. Nation Media is hiring a UIUX designer. The Room is hiring a mid and senior UX designer. Zepz is hiring a senior designer. VED is hiring a designer, a senior designer, and 60 Decibels. And thank you for sharing that. Those are the different people who are hiring. Now, if you do not have, you do not already have, Think Place is also hiring a social researcher. And so if you do not have those jobs, I'd request that someone paste those jobs in here. If the links are available, please paste them so that we can be able to see them and maybe apply. I hope the links also translate, but also you can go and search for them. Finally, this SSD Satellite Nairobi conference is welcoming creative thinkers with special interests in the topic of participatory design in urban renewal. The link will be posted, I believe, in the description, in the chat as well. So hang around. I'll stay around for a bit, for a few minutes in case you want to click on those links, but you can receive them. And I believe you'll also share them in our socials as well, so that you can be able to access them. Yes, let's do that. We will post them in the YouTube description. So if you're interested in any of the things that we've talked about, we'll post them in the YouTube description and you can find them. As we wrap up, I want to thank each and every person who hung around to the very end. And thank you for being part of this meetup. We would not be able to do this if it was not for each and every single individual, every one of you who chose to join and come to the meetup. It would not be, we'll not be able to do this without you. So thank you Thank you for being here. And until we meet next time, so the next meetup is going to be happening on the 20, I wrote it down here, on the 28th of November. Same time, same place virtually. So if look out for in the socials to register. Actually, if you can go to any of the socials, Twitter, X now, and click on any of the RSVPs event for today, you'll be able to be added to that meeting link, which is recurrent. And so go to those places to find them. Thank you so much for being here. And I encourage all of you to stay awesome and continue creating until we meet next time.